La Tech is in. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we will get to the second half of the Sunbelt Media Days preview with Dominic Crescetto on Wednesday. We'll do another Sunbelt Media Days with ESPN's Rocky Boyman on Monday, really previewing the Sunbelt Media Days right beforehand. We'll get to Caden Bodine and JB Middleton, among others, getting drafted. That happened a couple of days ago, and more happening on Monday as well. And then we have some more behind-the-scene news about what exactly happened and why and when it happened, and a little frustration on my end. I don't know if anybody else cares. I do. We'll see if you agree with that sentiment or not. So La Tech is in, and it happened a little early. I'm on the East Coast, and I was texting somebody back in Central Time Zone, and he says, Pete Thamel reported it, which, to be honest with you, I said was going to happen. I was texting back and forth with my buddies saying, because it got very quiet on that Wednesday after the CEO phone calls, and before that, it was a bunch of chatter. And they sort of closed ranks. And I mentioned this before throughout the last few days on the pod that they want somebody with more than 6,900 followers. Although, again, we are closing in on 7,000 followers. It is ridiculous. I'm going to have more followers between April and August, if not July. I mean, I'm going to get to 8,000 pretty quickly than I did between 2013 and 2025. It's outrageous. So I thank you so much. But obviously, I mean, the Sunbelt fed Pete Thamel the news, all right? I think that happened. Pete Thamel hadn't been saying anything here for a little bit, and it was first thing in the morning. I mean, I'm doing it at between 9 and 9:20 Eastern time, and boom, I believe it was 8:18 or so Central time, and they had gotten it done. In this first section, I do want to say that it feels like there's more positivity. I don't know if more La Tech fans came out on the comments. I don't know. It felt like there was more positivity. More Cajuns fans came out in favor of it. Like we're looking forward to playing them. I guess there is a question on whether it's going to be 26 or 27. I like Pete Thamel saying the earliest it's going to be is 26. Well, no kidding, Pete. Not going to be in 2 weeks or 2 months. We get that. It's probably going to be 27 and the 28 season. All right, being that one calendar year. And we'll get to more of that later on. But it just feels like, I don't know if it's just like, okay, they're in, let's make the best of this. They do need to invest more in their athletic program. All right. There is already one incredibly struggling program, and that's ULM. There's no secrets about that. John Hartwell is trying to make the best out of a tough situation. And the first thing he mentioned when he got there is that nobody had asked. And with a little bit of success on the football field, enrollment is up. God forbid you have back-to-back, a winning season. How about that? You go to a bowl game, you hire a little basketball coach, you get a little success on the basketball field, you hire a new basketball court, you hire a new baseball coach, maybe you get some success, right? And all right, there is, you want to set a standard, but you just want to have some success and some fun, right? Losing's no fun. Losing's no fun for anybody. It's no fun for the players, no fun for the coaches, and no fun for the administrators, and obviously no fun for the fans. But if you can go out and win, and not only, it's sometimes not even winning, it's just competing. It's not getting your butts kicked each and every week, right? Sometimes it's just seeing the tunnel and like having a chance. And for many years, ULM didn't have a chance. Now they have a chance. And so let's see them do that again. And you need to have that same thing from La Tech. They have not competed for a long time. When I first got to Louisiana, they were good. They were just as good as the Cajuns. The Cajuns went up to Louisiana Tech, and I believe got their butts kicked. We can go look at that. Was that 2014, 2013, 2014? So the Cajuns, they went 9-4. They could never win that elusive Sun Belt Conference title, right? But they went up to I don't know why I'm in baseball. No, because that's the first sport there. They could never win that Sun Belt, and HUD had a good team. Even gave Florida a run for their money. But I remember them going to La Tech, and did they get the doors blown off of them? Was it that 2013? 2014. It was early on. La Tech, 48-20. That's in 2014. And they had a good year. They're coming off, and they had beaten Southern 45-6. They're coming off a good year. Terrence Broadway and Elijah McGuire, they were expecting big things that year, and they got the doors blown off of them. La Tech was good, and they just have not been for the better part of half a decade. Have not had a winning season since 2019, since COVID. They won 10 games that year, I think. And so let's see if they can step it up, make some investment. I went on the, Louisiana News Network with Jeff Palermo, and what Tulane did a few years ago, right? Tulane sees themselves as a place of higher learning, education first, and you pay a pretty penny to go there, right? Costs a lot of money to go to Tulane, and they see sports as secondary. But they've seen what LSU has done in terms of bringing in all that money and all those championships. They went out and got Willie Fritz. They go beat Caleb Williams in the Cotton Bowl, and they see all that money and all that exposure. And they went out and got John Summerall, and they've kept that football at a high level. Now they got to do it with basketball, and they want to do it with baseball, but they see what that's about. Louisiana Tech's got to do it. Now they have a chance to spend some money and get that rivalry going with ULM, get that rivalry going with the Cajuns, spend a little money and egg it on with Southern Miss and Arkansas State. All right. And raise that level. And you got head-to-head recruiting battles. You have some serious recruiting battles. Are you going to go play for the Cajuns? Are you going to go play for ULM? Or are you going to go play for La Tech? All right. That's some serious recruiting battles now that the Cajuns have to deal with. Cajun fans are going to say, no, we don't. We don't have to. That's not competition. It's going to be. Right? Like LSU and the Cajuns don't recruit the same players. That's not the same thing. And the Cajuns are going to tell you they don't recruit the same players that ULM does. And Cajun fans are going to tell you that they don't recruit the same players that La Tech does. They will now. They certainly will now. And so now it's up to La Tech to raise their standards, improve their facilities. I think the baseball stadium, certainly softball, I thought, was torn up a few years back with a tornado running through. That got fixed up. Probably have to improve the football stadium. Right? And got to lift that up. So they have to improve that and invest in athletics. And let's see where they are. Not only, in a couple of years down the road, but for the 27 season, right? If not the 26 season, right? Let's see where they are in a couple of years. Jeff Palermo did say something interesting. We'll see if it comes out. I'm recording this at 6:00 Eastern time. Hadn't seen anything official. Jeff Palermo mentioned that there was nothing official that was announced either by the Sun Belt or Louisiana Tech, which we found interesting. But I do want to talk about some of that as well coming up. So none of that was announced officially on Monday by 6 p.m. Eastern that I had seen, which we did find interesting. But again, Pete Thamel and others had announced it along with College AD, had it right afterwards, and I had it shortly thereafter as well. All right, some behind the scene news. That first, some stuff that just frustrates me, and then we'll talk about some stuff that happened or did not happen behind the scenes. All right, we'll do that right after I tell you about Game Time. We've all been there. logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% with killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app shows you panoramic seat view, so you know there's no surprises. With Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Worried about what happens if plans change? The Game Time guarantee has your back with cancellation, protection, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, so some of the things that could be just annoying to me, and I don't know if anybody else is paying attention to this. Obviously, the Sunbelt is not. So this vote happened first thing Monday. Why didn't it happen Friday? I haven't heard about any bylaws in the Sunbelt that it has to wait some 48 hours or anything like that. But you could have had the news cycle. And again, I don't even know if it's a 24-hour news cycle these days. But you would have had all day, half a day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You know what happened Monday? SEC Media Days. And you know who was attending SEC Media Days on Monday? LSU. That's not a surprise. Everybody knows it. You know where all of Baton Rouge media and all of New Orleans media was? Atlanta. All right. Not to mention probably some northern Louisiana media. You know who could have had all the exposure to themselves Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Although the story did leak. That's why I said breaking-ish. You know, it wasn't huge news that this vote came, right? The news actually was Friday. But they could have held the vote on Friday and had the whole story all weekend. So Rage and Review will tell you, well, we can't worry about them. You got to worry about them a little bit. That's why Sunbelt Media Days isn't this week. It's next week. That's why South Alabama doesn't play on the same day as the Iron Bowl. They play on Black Friday. When I was in Lafayette, South Alabama actually moved either the day or the time that they played because the Iron Bowl got switched. And now they don't even bother playing it on Saturday. They play it on Friday. You'd like to think, I appreciate the fact that, you can't worry about the other guys. NFL certainly doesn't worry about Major League Baseball, but take the MLB draft. You don't think they changed because of what the NFL did? And for the better. It used to be this, first of all, the Major League draft was never on TV. Then they put it on Major League MLB Network, and it was as sterile as could all get out. Now they got some festivities and festival and fans, and the players aren't usually there because they're with their families, so it's a little bit different, like with the NBA or the NFL draft. But at least there's something going on, and they've done a good job with it. That's because of the NFL, so they've taken some ideas from that. So good for them. But you just could have had. It just annoys me to no end that the Sun Belt could have had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the news would have been done. Instead, right in the middle of Greg Sankey speaking, La Tech joins the Sun Belt. Gets pushed to the back page. We'll see. All right, it'll be interesting to see where that story is. We know where it's going to be in the Louisiana papers. We'll see where it is in South Louisiana papers. We'll see where it is in New Orleans papers. We'll see where it is in the Northern Louisiana papers. All right. Just a missed opportunities. I know newspapers aren't what they used to be, but just a missed opportunity. All right. Now for some behind the scenes news that I was told. So I made some bad presumptions. When I said that why it was taking so long, and you'd think if they wanted La Tech in, La Tech would be in, right? When Pete Thamel announced Texas State was going to the Pac-12, Kyle Boniger on that report as well, and La Tech was coming in. That was on that Sunday of the College World Series, so the middle of June, right? And then everybody was saying Louisiana Tech was still in line to get in, and I commented they'd be in if they were going to be in. My understanding is they had no discussions on them until then because Texas State was still in the room, which doesn't make any sense to me because they had discussions on East Carolina. Someone called East Carolina to see if East Carolina would be interested. So someone called East Carolina. So they were kicking around. They didn't get around to La Tech until after Texas State left. So this hadn't been working around. They hadn't been working on La Tech until the 1st, instead of having it done on like the 30th. Here's the other key part that will get worked out. I don't have any doubt, even if Conference USA wants to be a little petty, but it doesn't make any sense. Apparently, there is a 14th month warning that you have to give if you're going to buy it out. And so they needed to be out by technically May so they can play in September. And now they're not out until July. So technically 14 months, doesn't allow them to play in the Sun Belt in 2026. I presume that will be worked out. But that's something that will have to be worked out. Okay, I don't know if it's going to be more money or whatever the case is going to be. Probably not more money, but something will get worked out. But that's also something that if Texas State has been playing footsies with the Pac-12 for the better part of a year, did the Sun Belt not know about this? Why wasn't this? This is my problem with some of the Sun Belt stuff. They are reactive and not proactive. Right? We like to where we are. We will react to what happens after the fact. Why is that? Why can't they be proactive? Now, to add the teams that people want, East Carolina, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, takes two to tango. That's the problem with that. East Carolina wasn't interested, and the buyout and the drop down in money is obviously cost prohibitive. But, the Ohio thing is interesting, but you need to be a little bit proactive. And hopefully, whenever the next round is, that ACC contract was extended. So I'm not sure, like through the 36, 37 season. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But this is where we are. At the very least, it is going to be a fun Sun Belt Media Days. It is going to be a really fun and interesting Sun Belt Media Days. We will see if Keith Gill says anything of interest. Okay. What happened on Sunday night? Caden Bodine taken in the first round. JB Middleton taken in the second round. We talk about them next, among others. We will do that after I thank everybody again. All right, we are well on our way to, we'll probably have, I think, maybe over 2,400 subscribers. We sort of slowed down on a Monday. We're already over 100 subscribers halfway through the month of July. I was going for 150 in July and 150 in August to get to 2,500. We may be at over 2,500 by the end of Sunbelt Media Days. We'll see. All right. And then we'll see what happens with all those coaches coming on. We're going to have, it's going to be a lot of fun over the next at least 10 days. And then we get to preview everything in August. So we're just going to have a lot of fun ranking all the teams and previewing the season. And I'm just jacked to, start talking about on the field stuff instead of off the field stuff. And thank you. We basically, not quite a record, but our best audio day in a long, long time. Best audio day of the year was yesterday. All right. So don't forget about those as well. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're absolutely going to have our best month audio wise, I believe, in 2025. So really appreciate that. It is a big, big help. Looking forward to getting down to New Orleans. We'll come back and we'll talk about the guys drafted in MLB draft. We'll do that right after this. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, Caden Bodine, taken by the Orioles. Okay. We're probably going to talk about out of both sides of my mouth. I really don't know how to say this guy's name, so I have to look at it to say it. Adley Rutschman, big-time player for the Orioles, highly touted prospect. I think he's banged up a little bit, but if healthy, kind of blocking Bodine's progress to the big leagues. All right. Like Baltimore is basically set there for the better part of a decade because honestly, the fastest way outside of a Paul Skeens and Steven Strasburg type of deal, right? Like the fastest way to the big leagues is a really good defensive catcher. All right. Or a good defensive hitting catcher, right? That is really the fastest way to the big leagues, because if you can come off the bench, because catchers can't run, and that is the one thing that Bodine can't do. He's not running, although he led off, right, for Coastal Carolina. If you pinch hit for the catcher, so if Bodine's coming off the bench and he's backing up Rutschman, he run at your own risk against Caden Bodine. Right. And he can handle the bat. So he could find himself in the big leagues really quickly. And everyone's going to carry two catchers, at least. And if he doesn't go all Rafael Devers on anybody, he can find himself playing another position. All right. Figure out how to play first base in a pinch. All right. So we'll look at that. All right. Very different these days because the draft used to be the 1st of June. Now it's the middle of July. I guess the season is technically 2 months to go. It used to be. Now it'd be like 6 weeks to go, 7 weeks to go. But you generally have 2 months to go. So we'll see where he's assigned. Not to mention he's had a month off. Whereas they used to get drafted, like just as the College World Series was starting, or the regionals were starting or something like that, and they would go right from that. So they've had some time off. So that's where he went. And that's a fast way to go. All right. On the other hand, all right, you do have JB Middleton, who was drafted by the Rockies. I mean, nothing great can be said about the Rockies. They are not a serious organization. If you can tell me the last Rockies pitcher, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know the Rockies organization, but who's the last Rockies pitcher that signs a second contract, right? Like they're already taught. Paul Skeens has already been talking about being traded, and he was drafted in 2023. I don't think he's going to get traded, not this year, but maybe next, but probably the year after, because he ain't going to sign with the Pirates because the Pirates don't want to compete, right? The owner is cheap and doesn't want to compete, and that's what appears the same thing for the Rockies. Here's going to be the difference between J.B. Middleton and Paul Skeens. Is J.B. Middleton going to have a 1 ERA pitching in Colorado? All right. And so he was a second-round pick, 45th pick in the draft. My advice would be to pitch his tail off and hopefully be part of a trade. That every time you were pitching, you are being not only scouted for your team, but someone else is scouting, and you could be in a package for somebody else. You are auditioning for all 30 teams. All right. At the same time, here's the difference between the pitchers and the catchers. There's 12 pitchers on the team. I know 5 starters, maybe get up there as a middle reliever, whatever, right? And, a couple of short relievers and a closer. JB's obviously not going to be one of those, I would not think. So, you got a handful of guys, more than a handful of guys, so he can get up there quickly as well. All right. I'd be interested to see how much he pitches, because he pitched a lot this year, but he's also rested now. He's been resting for the better part of, well, unfortunately, a month and a half. So we'll see if he goes and makes a couple of starts, mostly to see what they want him to work on in the offseason. That's what he will be. All right. That's what he will work on. All right. All right. Jacob Morrison did get drafted. Did I see like in the 90s? Let's see here. 3rd round pick, Jacob Morrison, taken by the Brewers. All right. So again, another pitcher. Probably going to get, a handful of starts, shut them down, go to instructs, and see where they are from there. And, again, just kind of get a base on what they want to work on in the offseason to be ready for spring training, because these guys pitched a lot already. All right. I think we saw Nick Monaster got drafted, right? He was taken, what was that, the 4th round by the Astros? 4th round, 126th pick. It's a great pick, right? Astros get such a solid player. Fantastic. And here's the thing. As somebody, for those who don't know, spent over a decade in minor league baseball, all right? It is such a different sport than the NBA and pro football in terms of the mental strain, because they actually want you to fail outside of the lights of the big leagues. They don't want a Rick Ankiel type of situation where you have this huge prospect and all of a sudden he loses it in the postseason and can't get it back. And thank goodness Rick Ankiel basically had a second career as an all-star outfielder. Who saw that coming, right? And so they want you to have that 3-week struggle in Quad City or in Davenport, Iowa, right? Or in Eugene, Oregon, or somewhere outside of the bright lights where there is one beat writer and maybe 2 TV stations covering you. Kind of like the Sun Belt, right? That's what they want it to be like. They don't want 10 cameras in front of you. They want you to kind of grow up outside of the bright lights of the city and have that struggle. So when you do come out of it, you know how to do it when you're struggling in the big leagues. It's a very odd deal. And I don't know if the numbers have changed. They kind of want you to have 500 professional innings. They kind of are looking at somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 at bats, right? And there are so many guys in college ball, Cajuns, LSU, who are really good college baseball players that are just not playing anymore. It's really hard. Anybody who gets to the big leagues and is successful in the big leagues, it is incredibly difficult. All right. They have all of my, and I don't care if you are a 250 hitter coming off the bench in the big leagues. That's impressive. Not everybody can be a Hall of Famer. All right. You spend a half a dozen years in the big leagues, good for you. You can make a lot of money in the big leagues being a left-hander out of the bullpen. Might be a strain on a annual basis, but you keep your head down and your mouth shut and just get guys out. You can. Jeff Rebele, nobody remembers him. Oriole, he's a real estate agent, or I always thought, isn't there anybody better than Jeff Rebele? And he just had a really solid big league career, and just kept at it. So, absolutely my respect if you get to the big leagues, because I have seen guys. There's a guy in Peoria who was just a hitting machine, went into an August slump, could not buy a hit in August, couldn't get him out from April through July, couldn't buy a hit in August, couldn't buy a hit in spring training. I think he was done with his career in May. That's how fast it happens. Like that. Fast. All right. Okay. Wednesday, Dominic Corsetto from Sunbelt Syndicate will break down the East. Nope, the West. We did the East. We'll break down the West Division for Sunbelt Media Days. Looking forward to that. We got the list of coaches. Of course, the coaches I want to talk to the most that I haven't spoken to a lot are ones after my plane takes off. So we'll see if we can make that adjustment. Hopefully we can get that in. If we can't, oh well. We're going to talk to as many as that we can in the time allotted. So I will be down there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday through about 1. I'm not missing my plane back. All right. Can't be doing that. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for all the support. Really appreciated. We're going to be close to 7,000 Twitter followers. It's a lot for me. And we're going to be very close to that 2,500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of Sunbelt Media Days. So thank you so much. Don't forget, next week, right before Sunbelt Media Days starts on Tuesday, Rocky Boyman from ESPN, who's actually hosting Sunbelt Media Days, is going to hop on and preview it with us. He's hosting it with Matt Stewart. Once again, you've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. And don't forget, Wednesday, Sunbelt Syndicate's Dominic Corsetto joins us. Again, enjoy the day, everybody. Thank you so much.